Hi, my name is Mike Foley. I am a master lecturer here in the College of Journalism and Communications. I am also the Hugh Cunningham Professor in Journalism Excellence. I came here after nearly 30 years with the Times Publishing Company, which publishes now the Tampa Bay Times. It was the St. Petersburg Times in St. Petersburg, the South's largest newspaper. I held a variety of positions there, from lowly reporter to exalted executive editor. And then I was a corporate vice president. I sold out completely to the business department towards the end. And now I'm here. I've been here for, I'm starting my 15th year in January, and this is the best job I've ever had. I teach reporting, which is a rigorous course that all journalism and public relations and now telecom news students will have to take and pass. And it's no small feat, some of my students tell me. It is rigorous in that we require them to know punctuation and grammar and Associated Press style, and to write intelligent stories with news values and clearly and cleanly and simply. Simply put, journalism is the search for truth, and that's the easy answer. I think the hard answer is what I try to instill in my students is that journalism is the ultimate goal of a good journalist is to make sense of a confusing world. And this is a lot harder than it sounds, because it is very confusing and there are all sorts of different information. This day and age, especially with the technology as it is, we are bombarded with quote unquote news. And I think that what we're trying to do in journalism is sort through all these sources of information to get at the truth, and in a way that helps people through their daily lives. I think that's the most important thing. What does this mean with the weather? What does this mean to me? With Obamacare, what does this mean to me? And I think that that's the best lesson that I can teach is find out what this means to your readers and explain it to them in simple terms, simple and interesting terms. I think right now it's funny because you hear about the demise, the slow and painful demise of newspapers. And that's probably true. It will not happen in my lifetime, I don't think. But it's old technology. You know, you have trucks, you have presses, you have ink, you have pressmen, you have all sorts of other things when you can actually deliver the news in a tweet with none of those other factors. And so I think that while the need for newspapers is diminishing, the need for journalism is bigger than ever before. So I have not had any student who wanted a job in journalism not get one. I think they have all found it now. Is it in New York City, working for the Times? No, but if they want to do this, they can do this. And I think that if journalists have a passion and they realize that this is as much a mission as it is a craft, and I think that if they want to practice that craft and fulfill that mission, there's plenty of room to do it. It might be across different platforms, if you will, than printed paper, but it is out there and it is available and it is needed more than ever. Storytelling is the ultimate art. That's how you interest people. People like stories. One of my former colleagues, the Pulitzer Prize winning Tom French, talks about this primal need, like hunger and thirst in a story. People need to know what comes next, what happens next. And this is why we watch television, we go to movies, and we read books. We want to find out what happens next. And I think that that's the ultimate way of getting a message across, to tell a story, with people in it. And that's how we will tell people what is going on in the world and help them understand what's going on around them. Again, to drop another name, Michael Connelly, best-selling author, is fond of saying about the news business, he's a graduate of our program, by the way, it's fun of saying that our best day is your worst day. And so I preface that because my best day as an editor was a horrific event. A ship ran into the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in May of 1980, and I was the editor in charge of covering that. We did 24 stories that day and wrote about the horribleness of this. 35 people died plunging off the bridge into the water. And while it was a terrible, terrible event, we covered it, I think, better than, it was one of the best days in terms of news coverage, of telling people what happened, how it happened, and why it happened, that I've ever been involved in. Well, I have a sign on the front door of my office that says, no one remembers who got it first, everybody remembers who got it wrong. And I firmly believe that, because in this day and age of tweets and everything else, the race to be first doesn't mean that you're going to be the race to be right. And even the New York Times, which I believe is the most solid brand in the business, has gotten it wrong recently. And I'd like to avoid that. I think that that's not the wave of anything worthwhile. Sure, you get it first, but if it's wrong, what good is it? So I think I would go with the brand names. I would go with the New York Times. I would go with the Washington Post. Is their technology as good as it should be? Not yet, but I think it will be. They've got the money. Certainly they've got the desire to do it, and they have the need to do it in order to stay alive. But again, I go with the brand names. My former newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times. They again are behind the wheel here in technology, but they get the message, they tell the story, and it's right. Well, I think that the desire for clicks is a horrible thing to happen to journalism. There are some organizations that pay their quote unquote reporters by the number of clicks their stories get, and that's a terrible way to do things, because then they're going to write things that are sensational. They're going to overwrite what they know. They're going to tell you things that in a teasing way. You can see it on Facebook now, or on some of the ads down at the bottom of some good publications where they have these stories. You know, the 5 pictures of Jennifer Aniston's bikini bod, and they're old, and you know, and it's sucking you in. It's like a carnival barker. You know, come on into the tent here and look at this stuff. The 2-headed calf, or the 5,000-pound man, and some of it's real and some of it's not. But I'd rather not wonder about it. I'd rather know. Outside of classwork, I would encourage them to read good writing, because if you don't read good writing, if you don't read, you're not going to be able to write. And good writing and good journalism, and as again, you go back to some of the brand names, it will learn what a story is, how they tell a story, whom they talk to, what is important, what goes to the top of the story, what goes in the middle of the story, what goes to the bottom of the story. All that is very, very important. But the language is everything. How does it flow? Is it easy to understand? You can't tell a story with big words and jargon and mangled sentence structure. You just can't do it. Well, you can, but nobody will read it. And if nobody reads it, there's no point in writing it. So that would be my thing. The other thing I would encourage a student to do is figure out what they want to do. What makes them burn inside? What subject or area or something is it? The environment? Is it healthcare? Is it something else? And become an expert, because you're going to have to differentiate yourself from the crowd. And I think that's an excellent way to do it, is to differentiate yourself in a good way from the crowd. I mean, and so if you can do that before you even get here, say, well, I want to specialize. I want to cover politics, so I'm going to minor in political science. I'm a major in journalism, minor in political science. Great, you've made up your mind. You know what you want to do. It took me till I was a junior in college to decide, hey, I think journalism's for me. I started out majoring in math, but reading is everything. In fact, one of our guest speakers on campus, Lucy Morgan, the Pulitzer Prize winner from the St. Petersburg Times, she didn't know she was going to be a journalist. She was a young mother with three kids when the editor of the Ocala Star-Banner knocked on her door and said, "How would you like to write for my paper?" And she had said, I've never written anything. And he says, well, I checked with the librarian, and they said that you read more than anybody else in this area. And I figured if you read that much, you can write. And I mean, that's a terrific story, and it happens to be true. I think a mentor is extremely important, someone that you admire, someone who will help you. Often journalists are pretty good about this because they're flattered that you want to be like them, and they often will help you out. And I think that's a good thing, because not only will you see what you should do, you'll see what you shouldn't do, and you'll also find out for sure what you want to do. Because in my class, for example, right now, if a student gets halfway through it and says, you know, I really don't like this. You know, I don't want to come in and write a story every day. I don't want to look at a blank computer screen and have to fill it with words and have to figure out what's important and talk to people. I don't like this. I think I'll major in economics. I count that as a success story. I think that's really important. You have to have the fire in your belly to do this, because it's hard work, very hard work to do it well. But it's also among the most gratifying work you can do. it's different than any other profession, I believe, and the people who are in it are different and wonderful in that regard, and they're fun to hang out with. Well, it's funny because I'll say something now that's just outrageous, but when I would have writer's block, for example, the best advice I ever got was, again, I'm going to drop another name, Roy Peter Clark, the writing coach from the Poynter Institute, would suggest lowering your standards. And that's just something that is just so alien to me, but it's a way to get words, I would say words on paper, but we don't do that anymore, words on the screen. And I think that that's one of the best ways to just write something and then do what you should do anyway, is go back and make it better, and then go back and make it better again and again and again, because rewriting is essentially writing. There's no such thing as just sitting down and writing a story. You do that, and it's mediocre at the very best. I think it's very important to figure out what your audience is reading. I think that what interests them is very important. How they feel about it is fine. I'm not sure that the comment section at the end of a story is exactly, I'm not sure about anonymous critiques, and critique is such a fancy word for nasty words. But I do think that it's important to understand what the people want. I mean, that's the whole point. And not necessarily give them exactly what they want, because there's a lot of things that they don't know they want. And that's what I fear is being lost with the demise of newspapers, that serendipity of going through the paper and saying, whoa, I didn't know I was looking for that, but now that I found it, that's what I wanted. And that's something I think is a problem. But I think that a good editor will have his finger on the pulse of the public, and will get out and talk to people and figure out what the people, parents at his PTA, friends in the Rotary Club, neighbors, what are they talking about? What are they interested in? And then write about it, talk about it, investigate it. Passion, and that's not really a skill, but it's a necessary ingredient. If you don't care about your work, you're not going to do good work. And this is, as I say, it's a tough field. But passion is one of those great things that will drive you and motivate you, and you will strive for perfection, and you'll never get there, but you'll strive for it. And I think that's what other profession? I mean, there certainly are many professions that are terrific, but in journalism, it's the truth is so elusive, and you dance around it, and people try to get in your way, and it's competitive, and so you've got to have some fire, otherwise it's not for you. And once you get there, though, you get to do several things. One, you get to tell people what's going on, which is kind of fun. You get to hang out with people like you who are curious and informed and interested, and then you get to do good. Doing good is pretty important.